switching gears now. Join me this time as someone who's definitely not a Mameluke. Joining me from New York City is the director of Jihad Watch, RobertSpencer. Robert, welcome back to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, Robert, so we're hearing about the threat of ISIS on our homeland. There are reports that there may be as many as 100 ISIS sympathizers in America that have gone to fight or are about to leave America to go fight alongside of ISIS in the Middle East. Is that number low, high, sound about right to you?
I think it's low. Unfortunately, it seems as if there's quite a lot of interest among young American Muslims for the Islamic State. Clearly, the idea of the restored caliphate has captured the imaginations of many young Muslims. We have never seen this kind of interest in the United States in joining al-Qaeda. There were only a handful of Muslims from the United States who did that. And of course, last year, there were some Muslims from Minneapolis who were Somali, who were going back to Somalia to join Al-Shabaab, the jihad terror group there. But we have never seen this kind of interest with businessmen like Mufid Elfki in Rochester, New York, who ran a successful restaurant. He now is charged with trying to aid the Islamic State. Halima Conley, formerly Shannon Conley in Colorado, a young woman who had just converted to Islam, now pleaded guilty to trying to join the Islamic State. This is something that we've never seen in this kind of numbers. No. And I think it's only going to grow, and authorities have every reason to lowball it since they are denying the threat altogether.
Only going to grow. That is the troubling point at the end of your comment there. What is driving these individuals, RobertSpencer? What is motivating them? It's my understanding most of the individuals are under the age of 35. Why is it? You talk about the restaurant owner. It sort of defies the logic. I mean, a lot of people are comparing this to youth who are sort of disenfranchised from society, from having any support group, and oftentimes people join the Bloods and the Crips so that have that sort of background of no family support group in place. Is it like that?
Well, actually, unfortunately, a lot of these people are quite successful. Jeez. And there have been many people who are wealthy and who are well-educated, who have gone from around the world, from Britain, from France, from Germany, as well as from the United States, to join the Islamic State. The appeal of this is in this caliphate idea. The caliphate is supposed to be the unified government of all the Muslims, with the caliph being the successor of Muhammad as the spiritual, political, and military leader of the Muslims. And the caliph, there hasn't been a caliphate or a caliph since 1924, when the office was abolished by the secular Turkish government. And that has been grievance number one of all the jihad terror groups. One of the main things that they all lament about, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, you name it, they lament that there is no unity among the Muslims, that there's no caliphate, and one of their principal goals has been to restore the caliphate, but nobody has managed to do it in any convincing way up until the advent of this group. And that's why this group is so appealing.
You know, Robert, everything about it is troubling, but again, one of the key points you make is that these are successful people, traveled around the world. There was a time not so long ago, in our very short history, where we as Americans believe that by and large, when people immigrate here from another nation and they see the freedom and the openness of our society, they distance themselves from the values of other more oppressive cultures. And perhaps we speculated that is why we hadn't seen some of the terror attacks on U.S. soil that Europeans and other countries have seen, and other continents have seen. But it feels like, sadly, that notion may be from a bygone era of like 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, really, multiculturalism, the idea that immigrants should not try to assimilate, but should bring their cultures to their new country, has been very, very damaging in this particular respect, because we're talking about people who are coming from societies that consider themselves to be, these immigrants are the first immigrant group who have a ready-made model of society and governance that they are taught to consider to be superior to the model of the country to which they are coming. And of course, when the country to which they are coming is teaching them, well, we're all multiculturalists and you retain your own culture, this is very dangerous and very damaging. And we see it in Europe with the Sharia enclaves, where in increasing numbers of cities in Europe, there are Muslim areas where the Islamic law prevails, and the law of the government, the law of the land, just is not paid attention to, and authorities have not yet had the will to do anything to enforce the idea that there's single law for all the citizens of the country. This is the kind of thing that's going to happen here if we're not careful.
All right, switching gears now. An important topic not getting talked about in the media, and we want to bring it up. Some people will say, well, you know, if you're in the media and you bring this up, you shouldn't, you might get repercussions. We're going to hit it square on with you, RobertSpencer, and we're going to continue to hit square on in the show in the weeks ahead. And that is this. Right now, Comcast is on Capitol Hill, meeting in front of Congress about they want to buy Time Warner. And why that is important ties into a bigger story. Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is a Qatar, however they pronounce it, owned organization. Al Jazeera is described by our FBI, our very own FBI, as a Osama bin Laden sympathizer. Al Jazeera has direct contacts to the Muslim Brotherhood. And Al Jazeera, by the way, is carried by Comcast, is carried by Time Warner. By the way, DirecTV and Dish. And these cable companies are forcing their customers to pay extra to have Al Jazeera brought into their homes. Am I over-exaggerating Al Jazeera's connections to terrorist ties and money?
No, not at all. Not at all, Rick. There have been Al Jazeera reporters who've been arrested for jihad terror activity. Al Jazeera is closely connected to the Muslim Brotherhood operatives who have been operating for years in Qatar. Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi is the most renowned and prominent Islamic cleric in the entire world. He is banned from entering the United States for endorsing jihad suicide bombing attacks against American soldiers. He has praised Hitler and called for Muslims to finish Hitler's work and kill Jews wholesale. This is a deeply noxious, evil character, and he's closely connected with the Qatar government and with Al Jazeera. And the Muslim Brotherhood has been given extraordinarily favorable coverage, as well as other jihad terror groups, by Al Jazeera. It's essentially the propaganda network for the global jihad. And so the idea that Americans would have to pay more for this, it's a scandal.
And I want to point out, Al Jazeera has been kicked out of Egypt by the Egyptian government. All right, so we'll continue this conversation in the weeks ahead, RobertSpencer, because it's an important one. Again, American cable companies, and you may call it Al Jazeera America, but it's all the same thing. I mean, it's part of Al Jazeera, which is backed by Qatar money, which is in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood, which is why Egypt kicked them out. And all the points which you make, in American cable companies, Comcast, Time Warner, Direct, Dish, are charging their customers more so that Al Jazeera can be carried on those providers. And some of those same providers have not yet made a decision on a American-owned network like One American News. RobertSpencer of Jihad Watch, the director, we thank you for joining us.